So welcome everyone. Thank you for being here. Today we have a conference dedicated to the insurance policies, which are supplement to the JSIS, or ARCAM as we can say it in French. The conference will be held by the FFPE with thanks to Mr. Serge Krutsen, who will explain a little bit the situation on the insurances, the complementary insurances we have, and the possibilities everyone has to complement the JSIS insurances we have here in the Commission. The conference will be held in English, but anyone who wants to ask the question in French, English, preferably not another language, please, or Italian, if there's are welcome to speak in its own language, French or English, preferably. If you have very specific questions, Serge will be able to reply to them after the presentation. The presentation will be held for between half an hour and 45 minutes maximum. Then we will have a conference. The conference will be then dedicated to a question and answer panel questions. And after that, if you didn't find any specific reply to your very specific question, Serge will be also available to reply to your questions by email if necessary. The presentation, we have made a few copies. We had a problem this morning with the photocopies because the printers were offline. So we finally succeeded to have a few examples of the presentations. Anyway, the presentations will be sent to you if you requested them by email. We send an email to our secretary and we will send you the presentation plus the text accompanying this presentation. So I will not continue here. We are not here to listen to myself, but to Serge Krutsen, who is a specialized person on these specific questions on complementary insurances to the JSIS scheme. Voilà. Thank you for my part.
Thank you, Statis. We have to start now. So the object is insurance policies to supplement JSIS. Very often, people arriving near to retirement start to think about the possibility to get higher reimbursement for their medical expenses. And they are interested in insurances to supplement JSIS. This is explained during the seminar to prepare for retirement. But at that moment, very often we discover it is too late. Because it's easier to have an insurance when you have, I would say, 40, 50, when you are 50 years old. When you start having gray hairs, it becomes more difficult. So we are discussing with the administration, with Mrs. Suka mainly, to try to take all opportunities to inform the staff about insurances to supplement JSIS. Because very often you can remain with a large amount of money to pay by yourself. Very often it happens. And there are some countries where the medical care costs are very high, so that this bill remaining on your table can be very high. And there are countries like Switzerland where you don't receive 80% reimbursement. Very often you are under 50%. So you could have more than 50% of the bill to pay by yourself. And this is something that a lot of colleagues do not realize. So I will try to explain a little bit why this kind of insurance, health insurance, could be of interest. And I will also explain which kind of ideas or criteria you should think of when deciding to take such an insurance. Perhaps I will take more time to explain that than to explain what are the insurances which are available. Because really the important thing is to understand the benefit and how you should select the insurances, and also to understand which are the shortcomings of many of the proposals which are made to you. Okay, so let us start. The first is to make sure you are very well aware of the 4 sources of reimbursement you have for the medical care costs. Of course, JSIS or ARCAM, this is something which is very clear. You know which are the rules. I'm sure you don't know. In fact, you should have the DGEs or the JIPs, so the rules of JSIS at home, on paper. Because when you need them, very often you don't have time to go on your PC, look at my Intracom to see where this is existing. You should have these it's about 90 pages, you should have them at home. If you don't know where to get them, you ask me and I send you. So this is the first thing to know. The second is, and it is second point because of the request of the PMO. When you go abroad, think of an assistance scheme. If you have an accident abroad, if you are ill abroad, far away from, I would say, the European Union, but even if you are in France, in UK, or wherever, it's important to have such an assistance scheme for urgency, for repatriation organization, and so on. Because JSIS is not paying for your repatriation. And in some countries, JSIS will not give you a direct billing possibility. The fourth scheme is what is the object of the two-day presentation, supplementary insurance policies, and the fourth scheme is accident insurance. This is important mainly for the staff, or I would say for the retired staff, because you are covered by Article 73 of the staff regulations, which is covering you in a very good manner for any kind of problem resulting from an accident. You have even an insurance in case of invalidity, and you have an insurance in case of death. So it means you receive a capital, a lump sum of money in case of accident resulting in invalidity. So, but when you go on retirement, this Article 73 disappears. And what you receive as reimbursement in case of accident is what is given by the ERCAM or JSIS. It means 80–85%. You don't have anymore the possibility to have an invalidity capital. So these four schemes, you must make sure that you know about them and that you are covered. Some words about the development of JSIS. JSIS, which is our health system, was since 2007 very often in deficit. It was a very small deficit. Nothing very important, always covered by the reserve. But at a certain moment, it was when the member states had to accept the new staff regulations of 2014. So at the end of 2013, the member states sent a clear message to the Commission. You have to solve the problem of the deficit of JSIS. We will not accept to increase the contribution. So it means that these contributions cannot increase and will not increase. And so we have to remain within the limit of the income of the system. So JSIS had to take a certain attitude to make sure that the deficit would disappear. And in fact, you see from the curve that this deficit disappeared. But why? Because the PMO adopted an attitude called vigilance, which is no change of the rule. There is no change of the staff regulation, no change of the JIPs, no change of the rules of JSIS, but a very, I would say, restrictive measure or application of the measures from the rules, which means that in some cases you would have less easiness to be reimbursed. Or, for example, if we take some cases, you would see that several of our mainly retired colleagues were not recognized in prolongation of their severe illness recognition. So this led to some difficulties, mainly for the colleagues being retired. New excessive limits were introduced, more severity about official receipt, fiscal receipt, prior authorization, more severity about these kind of things. In other words, making it more severe the application of the rules led to, I would say, a correction of the deficit. And in 2013, 14, 15, even 17, knowing that there is a lot of bills to pay in 17, they were able to remain in positive. So, but the problem remains. It means that we will not be in a position for an easy situation. It is a structural problem that we recruit colleagues at a lower salary level now than it was in the past. But these colleagues are exactly statistically as well ill as we were in the past and presently. And so there will always be some difficulty for the PMO to make sure that the limit of the income is not, left over. Therefore, there could be an interest to have a complementary insurance, an insurance which makes sure that you could reach about 100% of reimbursement. Suppose that you have to have a total prosthesis of the knees or of hips, and this is costing a lot of money. It is not a severe illness, so you are reimbursed around 80%. I know very well the case because I have 2 knee prostheses, and it costed me 50,000 euro for both knees. 50,000, and I got about 80% reimbursement. So imagine we were left with a rather large amount of money. Fortunately, I had a supplementary insurance, and I was reimbursed at 100%. So supplementary health insurance policy is something that you should think of. I don't say you have to take it, but you should think of it. You should consider that this is perhaps something to take. It is very cheap if you look to the insurances which are worth. It means taking care of hospitalization mainly, because this is the big cost. It is when hospitalization is necessary. But how to decide and how to select, and this is the problem really. So within our organization, which is an association of retired staff, SEPS, FFPE, we try to understand during several years which were effectively the criteria to consider, how to advise our colleagues for supplementary insurances. And the first point, of course, is what is the risk? You will not speak of an insurance if you don't know about the risk. The insurance is there to cover the risk. But the risk, in fact, is defined by our JSIS. JSIS is defining the risk, because JSIS is saying you have a reimbursement of 85% or 80%. Of course, if you are in a recognition of serious illness, it is 100%. But there are exclusions, there are ceilings, there are limitations. Now some aspects of effectiveness were introduced and perhaps will be introduced in the future. Statistically, it is said in the report of the PMO of 2015, the level of reimbursement, the overall level of reimbursement for the whole staff insured by JSIS was in 2015 77% and not 85%. So there we were left with 23% to pay by ourselves. And in 2017, the new report, which is not even official yet, it's about 81%, so it's a little better. 81%, but nevertheless 19% is to be paid by yourself. And if you have hospitalization for 50,000 euros, 10,000 euros have to be paid by yourself. It is not negligible. If you can cover that with a rather cheap insurance, why not? Now, we have a very good staff regulation system because the risk is limited. And there is an article which limits the risk. And this article is saying that if during a year, a period of 1 year or 12 months, that you select yourself as you wish, you have a non-reimbursement which is greater, higher than half of your monthly gross salary, then you can ask for a supplementary reimbursement. But this supplementary reimbursement will be or will correspond to what is above this half salary. So the risk, theoretically, is half of your monthly gross salary. But you have to consider that there are ceilings, exclusions, limitations, and so the risk is a little bit higher. We tried to imagine some situations to make a little statistics. We arrived to the conclusion that it would be better to consider that the risk is 1 monthly salary, but netto, not gross salary. So this is more or less what you should consider as risk. How to cover the risk? What are the solutions? Well, the first solution is to pay by yourself. This is what happens for those having no supplementary insurance. So you set money aside to make sure that every year you can cover what would be this risk, because it can happen every year. And in that case, you are also the best insurance company you can think of, because you don't pay any benefit to the insurance company and you don't pay taxes, because on the insurances there is a tax of 9.25%. So having the money aside is probably the best solution. But this means also that this solution, in fact, is asking to put money aside, and if you have a large family, this could be difficult. The other solution is to take out a health insurance to supplement JSIS. Knowing that there are insurances which are not very expensive, for example, 150 euros per year when you are 50, 100 euros per year if you are 35. At my age, it is 264 euros per year, which is absolutely acceptable. Per year, per year, per year. No, it's not per month. Therefore, I say it's very cheap to have. Of course, I'm speaking of the major risks. I'm speaking of hospitalization. But it is when you have an hospitalization that the things are difficult. It's not because of medicines or some examinations, generally. So, take out a health insurance could be a very good solution. It is also a very good solution for your comfort. If you decide to ask to the PMO to consider Article 72.3, which means supplementary reimbursement, you have to make your own accountancy. Your own accountancy, which takes 2 or 3 years, because you have to see when you can propose that you have reached the half monthly salary. And then you have to propose it to the PMO, and the PMO has to make the verification. Very often there will be some discussion, because you don't understand everything perfectly. So you are reimbursed 2 or 3 years afterwards. If you have a health insurance, you just send the slip that you receive from the PMO or that you take out on the JSIS online, you send it to the insurance. No necessity to send a bill or whatever, just the reimbursement slip of the PMO, and the insurance company sends you the money, much before that the PMO could ask for it if you had a direct billing system. The second question is when to take out an insurance. You see, people say, I will think of it when I reach retirement. When you speak of it to young people, they say, oh, I don't need it now. I got myself some difficulties to convince my son to take such an insurance for his family. He's working at ISPRA, and he took it at the end, but he was already 45, so it took him a lot of time to take insurance. Now, if you look to that diagram, you see that what is reimbursed statistically, we are just speaking of the whole mass of affiliates, and the statistics which is made by PMO. Statistically, you see that about 13,000 euros are reimbursed for the colleagues aged 80 or plus. It's obvious we are at the end of life. But it means that these people are spending 16,000, perhaps even more, every year. In that case, having a supplementary insurance could be really interesting. But now have a look to the category 31-35. You see that they have a statistical reimbursement of 2,000 euros per year. It means that they are losing about 500 euros per year. If they are losing 500 euros per year, statistically, why do they not make a little effort spending 100 euros per year to have an insurance? Because if in this 500 euros there is some money due to hospitalization, it would be reimbursed. And so generally it could be seen as a null operation, so an operation which, financial operation, which is leading to a zero expense. So this diagram shows really that you could have, or you could be interested in such an insurance from the very beginning of your career. And for the moment, the best, or the insurances which are corresponding the best to our criteria, say there will be no medical questionnaire during the 12 first months of work at the Commission, because, of course, you have a medical visit to enter the Commission. So another question is, what kind of an insurance? You have insurances which are proposed by some associations. You have insurances which are proposed or which are, I would say, given as information by unions. So you have collective insurance or individual insurance. Because if you have an insurance which is proposed by an association, is it affiliatis, is it IACE? In that case, this association is negotiating the framework contract with the insurance company. And if you have a problem, this association is playing the game of negotiation of ombudsman with the insurance company. If you take an individual insurance, in that case, you face yourself the insurance in case of problem. So this is somewhat different. The other point is that a collective insurance very often is improving as a function of time, because the association is trying to improve, to get some benefits, to get some promotions of the insurance. This is effectively what happens. A second subject is, do you want to take an insurance for the major risks, hospitalization mainly, and all what is linked to hospitalization, or do you want to take an insurance for everything? What I will call afterwards a Rolls-Royce. You don't need a Rolls-Royce to go somewhere, but if you wish, there is always the possibility, but it will cost 10 times as much. What financial level of cover? Do you want to be reimbursed at 100% absolutely, up to the last euro, or would you accept to lose 5%, 3%? There are different types of reimbursement possible. Will you accept a medical questionnaire? The question is, do you take some pills? Do you have some health problems? If you take some pills because of your cholesterol or high blood pressure, forget about insurances. So it's important to think of an insurance without medical questionnaire. And there are some insurances given without medical questionnaire. Of course, these insurance companies are protecting themselves. So they will put ceilings everywhere for the reimbursements that you will have. Annual premium, depending on the age, or stable. Well, any kind of solution, if we have time we will see afterwards, any kind of solution is resulting in an increase of the insurance premium as a function of the age. Cover of treatment required following an accident. Of course, any accident should be considered by the insurance as if it were an illness, having the same reimbursement if you go to hospital because of an accident as if you were going there for an illness. So these are questions that you have to consider when reading the general conditions of an insurance. And generally, you have no time to read it, and you know exactly where to find the answer to the question. Further consideration. Be careful not to take out an insurance of a company which is making bankrupt. And this happens. Insurance for life. Of course, your insurance should not stop at a certain moment. And there are insurances which are stopping. There is one insurance which is stopping at 65, and it was creating a lot of surprise because a lot of us took it, and suddenly we received a letter, of course 30 years later, saying that no, you are 65, the insurance is stopping. Okay. Some insurances are changing completely the type of coverage when you are reaching the age of 75 or the age of 80. You take out an insurance with a very good coverage, and you don't know that at the age of 70 the coverage will go down at the minimum level. This is very often happening. So I cannot give you all the different criteria. We made a dossier, we call it a dossier, a file on insurances. It is available. In any case, if you don't have it, you can ask for it, and there you have some more explanations. But we have to make sure, and what we are saying here is for insurances which are valid all over the European Union, even all over the European Economic Area. This is quite clear. We do not speak of national insurances which are not valid or for which you have to make a lot of formalities if you wish to be, for example, in hospital somewhere else than in your country of origin. Another aspect is that if you can select an insurance, if you are able to have some information, make the choice of an insurance which is characterized by an intergenerational repartition. Young people are supporting insurances. Even if they take the insurance because they know there will be a problem in the family, afterwards, generally, they are contributing to the insurance and supporting what is, in fact, the weight of the retired staff. If you consider this insurance, you see that the retired staff, more than 60, is corresponding to less than 25%. This is a very stable insurance. And when we ask for promotions, the insurance says always yes, after 3 months, because, of course, they have to think of. But they always were saying yes. This is for us the best possible repartition. So, what are the insurances? Having in mind this kind of criteria, let us see what are the insurances which are proposed, and let us highlight the shortcomings of each of these insurances, because you will be facing these proposals if you are interested, and perhaps you will not discover what is written in the general conditions, which is in fact in opposition to one of our criteria. We have insurances with medical questionnaire and without medical questionnaire. With medical questionnaire, you have insurances which are proposed by associations. It means insurances which are corresponding to a framework contract. It means insurances which are in fact discussed and negotiated by a group. And the first one is Affiliatis. Affiliatis proposing HospiSave, and Affiliatis is a group of about 40,000 colleagues. And the insurances which were proposed by Affiliatis and the colleagues who took these insurances correspond to 24,000 contracts. So you imagine that when we discuss with the insurance company, we have a certain weight. And each time we were asking for a modification, for a promotion. It was accepted after a certain delay because even the insurance company says this is a good risk for them. It means they are making benefits. So this is the first one, affiliates. The second one is specific for retired staff. And it was negotiated as a framework contract by IACE, Association of Retired Staff. So there also it is a collective insurance. Then you have insurances which are individual ones, which were introduced by different unions. Of course, it's important that you have a choice, but we will see what are the benefits and what are perhaps the shortcomings of the different insurances. HospiSafe, as I told you, this is the first one. It was introduced by Affiliatis many years ago. It was UPFA, Union de Prévoyance des Fonctionnaires Européens, 55 years ago, who started these insurances with Umbrella. And in the past we were calling insurance Umbrella. I took myself this insurance when entering a TIFSPRITE, 68. So it means just 50 years ago. So this insurance moved, but always remaining more or less the best one because corresponding to all the criteria that we saw up to now. It's a collective insurance, so Affiliatis responds in case of problems. The problem is that you have to subscribe 6 months before retirement. And a lot of people are saying, I will think of it when I arrive at the retirement. And then they discover that it's too late. Unfortunately, and it is remaining like that for the moment. There is a medical questionnaire and no waiting period. Once you are, when you have the okay of the company, immediately you have the insurance, the same month, more or less. But the medical questionnaire, which is not difficult, that you can just fill by yourself, you don't ask to a doctor, but it's still posing the bad questions. Do you take pills? And if you take pills for blood pressure, for cholesterol or whatever, then you will be rejected. This insurance is covering all what is hospitalization in single rooms, even at Parc Léopold, Edith Cavell, Delta, whatever. And I can say it works effectively. Surgical operation expenses corresponding to this hospitalization 2 months before and 6 months afterwards. So if you have a long re-education after the operation, for example, prosthesis of the knee, it takes time to re-educate, all this is covered by the insurance. And if you have a lot of examinations, medical imaging, medical visits, specialists, before going to hospital, if it is related to the operation, you can go 2 months backwards and ask for the reimbursement at the level of 100%. So this 100% is true, there is no ceiling. All medical expenses during pregnancy, this was introduced 3 years ago to increase the number of young people taking out the insurance. And in fact it worked very well. So when I receive now a request, I am waiting for a child. In 2 months from now, can I take the insurance? The answer is yes, you take it. And the child will be covered for 2 years without premium. And this is, in fact, a very good advantage because it gave us a lot of possibility to introduce young people in the insurance. Possibility to maintain the cover when leaving JSIS, it means when leaving the institutions. And this can be of interest during a rather long period, waiting to restabilize your situation after leaving the institutions. Worldwide coverage, but as most of the insurances, there is a limitation in United States. If you go to United States, you are limited to 25,000 euros per year as a maximum reimbursement. Now you see what is the premium level for such an insurance. It starts at 65 for the children, for the young staff 79, for the people up to the age of 50, just a little bit more than 100, and for people more than 68, 2064, which is still quite possible. It's for a whole year. So this is what we consider corresponding to our criteria. Now, of course, if you didn't take it out before retirement, you can take the other one, which is proposed by IACHE for the retired staff. Apparently, it is the same insurance, apparently. But there are two limitations. The first one, HospiSafe, is valid for a period of 10 years. So no change of the premium during 10 years. Unfortunately, the period is closing at the end of 2019. So there could be an increase afterwards. But I know already the figures, it will not be more than about 10 euros. The other insurance for the retired staff corresponding to the same advantages as HospiSafe is, however, susceptible to see adjustment of the premium every year as a function of the statistics. In fact, in 2016, they were obliged to increase in one shot of 16%. And so this can increase. And there is a second limitation which has to be understood, but very often if you read the general conditions, you don't see it. There is a sentence saying, you will never receive more than what is reimbursed by JSIS. Now, let us take the case of a colleague that all of us know here very well. He was in Switzerland beginning of the year, had to go to hospital, he was with friends. And at the hospital, he was already in his bed and had to try to call the PMO to receive a direct billing. And because the hospital in Switzerland is saying 5,000, caution immediately and so on. And the answer of the PMO was, sir, you are in a country with very high medical care costs. We do not reimburse at 80%. Very often you can receive less than 50%. And we do not give direct billing. So he had to find his way by himself, using a credit card. In fact, no, he had assistance insurance. He was assisted by towing. In Belgium, it's combined with your plate number. And everything was settled in a quarter of an hour. So an assistance insurance can be very effective. Nevertheless, think of this: no direct billing in a country with very high medical care costs. Switzerland is one case. And he received 40% as reimbursement. 40%. Fortunately, he is insured. So he got 100% because HospiSafe gave 60%. This insurance would have given what? Not 60, 40%. Not more than what is given by JSIS. So this is a limitation which has little influence in Brussels, but could be of importance in a country like Switzerland, or in some countries where the medical care can be very high. It could even happen in Italy. It can happen in the UK for the private medicine. So there are limitations which are not always very clear in the general condition. A remark, yes, just to say that you have the possibility when you're retired to take out an insurance without considering the accident, because then you will take a specific insurance for accident. And the insurance company accepts that you go from HospiSafe to high risk if you wish, but for me it's not a good solution. Now I spoke of Rolls-Royce, so of course HospiSafe can be also completed to become a plus. And then you cover everything, even dental treatment, optics, all examination, prescribed medicine, medical visits, and so on. And of course, out-of-patient visits. But then you see the primes, you arrive to about 2,000 euros when you are more than 68 per year. So it's much more expensive. And there are some limits for dental treatments, also for medicines and so on. The limits are statistically to be considered rather high, but nevertheless, these are limits. So this insurance is a Rolls-Royce. Up to you to decide to drive a Rolls-Royce. Now, we stop with the insurances which are in fact managed by groups, by association. The two associations were Affiliatis and IACE. Here, it is an insurance which was introduced by Union Syndicale, by US, also by others afterwards, but was mainly introduced by Union Syndicale. It's an individual insurance, subscription up to 67, medical questionnaire, and if you look to the general conditions, you say it's a very pure copy of HospiSafe. The same as HospiSafe. Yes, of course, it's another department of Allianz proposing this insurance, which was proposed first to NATO, and they proposed it to us through Union Syndicale. Is there a difference between Eurosanté and HospiSafe? In fact, there are two differences. The first difference is that this is given by Allianz. It's not really through an association. So if you have a problem, you have to solve it by yourself with Allianz. It's not negotiated by an association. And the second problem is that there is an interrogation mark. What is the premium after 68? It is not indicated. And if you try to see what the general conditions are saying, you discover that they say after 67, the insurance policy is renewed in a tacit manner, and the insurance company defines the premium. So the premium could go higher and higher and higher and higher, and I saw the statistics of Allianz, because we are in very good contact with them. It could be a problem when you are 90, when you are 100. So they promised that in 2018 we would have the figure, what to be paid after 68. Up to now it's not there. But so, when you take out this insurance, you have to know that there is this limitation. And you should ask the company, please give me a written statement that we will not go higher than a certain figure. Because of that, a lot of colleagues went back to HospiSafe. Now, this Eurosanté option, very near to HospiSafe, can also become a Rolls-Royce. But again, they do not tell you what will be the premium after 68. So this is a shortcoming that you don't see when reading the general conditions. Therefore, we are trying to make it very clear. It's a good insurance, but there is something which is, for us, not correct. DKV was proposing, I would say in the past, because now it is taken over by La Lux, and it is not really possible anymore for us to take it out for fiscal problems between Luxembourg, because it's an insurance coming from Luxembourg. But it was, and it is still for those having the insurance, a good proposal, because it is covering nearly everything. It is a Rolls-Royce, but at a cost which is not so high as the previous two Rolls-Royce we saw. Now, their system is very different. They do not say reimbursement at 100%. They say reimbursement of 20 or 15%, depending on the rules of JSIS. So you understand that because of ceilings and limitation, you will always have a little amount of money still to be paid by yourself. And so this insurance was working well, it's still working well for those having the insurance. The only problem is that they say it's a horizontal insurance. It means that when you take the insurance, you receive the premium to be paid up to the end of your life, except if the statistics are showing that in fact the expenses are higher than expected. And we have a colleague 2 years ago who had an increase of premium of 20% in one shot. So at the end, you increase your premium as a function of time or as a function of the age. Another insurance was proposed by a Luxembourg company, Foyer, very well known in Luxembourg. They listened to all our criteria and they issued something which is in fact very near to our criteria. But they still apply the possibility of reimbursement at 20%. They say, you have expenses, we give you 20%. No administration, nothing, 20%. It could be that you have a little benefit if you receive 85%. It could be that you remain with some money to be paid by yourself. And they accepted to indicate which was the premium after 65 up to the end of your life. So we consider it as quite correct. Up to 65 years you can subscribe, but you have a medical questionnaire. Another insurance is corresponding to what I said, insurances without medical questionnaire. And this is something like a salvation for those retired staff who decide they should have an insurance, then phoning us or sending a mail and saying, is there still a possibility for me to have an insurance? I am 71, and then you say, yes, you are very lucky. Santalia is proposing insurances for people up to 75. And of course, without medical questionnaire, because at that age, a medical questionnaire would in fact impede anyone to have an insurance. So Santalia is proposing insurances without medical questionnaire up to 75. Of course, there is a waiting period, but they are not very long. For hospitalization, you have a waiting period of 3 months. For dental care, you have a waiting period of 6 months. And they reimburse along the rules of JSIS, 20% or 15%. Now, the annual premium is not very high. So, in other words, when you look at this, you see they are taking a lot of risk because no medical questionnaire. They are accepting people at risk, 75 years old, and they don't ask a lot of money for the premium. Where is the trick? Well, the trick is that you have ceilings everywhere. You are not reimbursed at 20%, supplementary reimbursement at 20%, if you go above a certain ceiling. And generally they are using the ceilings of JSIS that they are doubling. So they are limiting the risk. And by this limitation of risk, they are able to propose an insurance which is still valid. If you are able to follow the rules of JSIS, this insurance works correctly. But there are also some limitations that you see very well if you go to the same insurance but only valid for hospitalization, what they call hospi. In that case, it's only what is leading to hospitalization which is reimbursed. And there you see that there are limitations. Limitations, either you select a single room or a double room, you have a different tariff. If you take a single room, you are limited to the number of days. You are limited to the difference that you will be reimbursed between a single room and a double room. So there are limitations everywhere, but still it is an insurance which is valid. If I go back to the major one, you see that this reimbursement of 20 or 15% can be quite correct if you follow the rules of JSIS. This insurance proposed by FFPE is also including an assistance insurance. If you go to the same proposal which is made by R&D, you see that there is no assistance insurance, but in fact there is a difference of 50 euros, which is corresponding to a minimum assistance insurance. But it is the same insurance, the same company, the same rules, the same limitation. So this insurance can be of interest for those having no insurance and being already retired. But a lot of active staff are taking out this insurance because they are advised by FFPE or by R&D, and this insurance is valid if you follow the rules of JSIS. Now, there is one particular insurance which is creating problems to the brokers. This insurance is fantastic. Apparently it is insurance with the highest possible ceilings. Even for dental care, it's up to 5,000 euros per year, knowing that Hospice Plus would be 3,200 euros per year of ceiling for dental care. So this insurance apparently is the best. Of course, it is costing a little more. You go above the 2,000 euros per year if you take the Rolls-Royce, but it's a real Rolls-Royce. And of course, there is no medical questionnaire, which is fantastic. No waiting periods, except for dental implants. Okay. Subscription up to the age of 70. Marvelous. You can be retired and everything. So there must be something. And this something is very clear when you read the website. You see the website that to have the insurance you have to have a European link. Of course, we are all European institutions. And to be sound of mind and able-bodied. It means that you have to be in perfect health conditions. And so I phoned the administrator of this insurance, Expert & Co., and discussed with him. And he said that he considers that this statement is valid for 2 years. So it is as if they were introducing a waiting period of 2 years. So if you take out the insurance, you discover that you have to have a prosthesis of your hip. After 18 months, you will not be reimbursed. Also because at the subscription, you declare to be healthy. It is written there, you sign. And I do not intend to have surgery, medical, dental treatment, and so on. So this insurance, in fact, is fantastic, but you must make sure that you don't need it for the 2 first years. This is what I understood from the discussion with the owner of the company. And therefore the brokers are now saying, we don't like too much to propose it, because very often we have problems. But if you have time, you go to the website, you read everything, you have marvelous tables, you understand everything what you should read in general conditions, because this is explained. You see all the ceilings, you see what happens if you leave the institutions. There is a table corresponding to your fallback to another position. So it's very didactic. Now, I should say very few words for accident cover, because here you are not retired. Retired staff are very interested in that, but active staff are not really interested in this. So if you go on retirement, JSIS is covering medical care costs after an accident as if it were a sickness. So it's not that you lose any cover for accident, it is that you don't have anymore what was the proposal of the staff regulation, invalidity capital and death capital. But of course, you can take an insurance if you wish, being retired. This insurance is an insurance framework contract made by IARC, and this insurance is working very well, but it is costing a certain amount of money. It's in fact much more expensive than, for example, Hospice. But this is mainly for retired staff. If you are active staff, you could say, yes, I am covered for invalidity in case of accident. What happens with invalidity after an illness? Well, you don't receive a capital for invalidity after illness. It's not that if an illness is paralyzing you, for example, you will receive money to modify your house. There is a certain social budget at the Commission, but this budget is very reduced. You cannot ask to be supported for important things by that budget in case of invalidity, which is not resulting from an accident. So this insurance is an insurance which is covering you for invalidity of all causes. A lot of us took it in the 70s because we were also not quite sure of the way the Commission would consider certain accidents, for example, after hijacking or whatever. But this issue stops at the age of 65. Now, the last point is assistance. I wish to stress this point. You should not go abroad without having an assistance insurance. I give you two very simple examples. And these are real examples. The figures are not real because I don't have them on paper. But the first example is a colleague of us who went to United States to celebrate his retirement. He was working at the Commission in the administration, never had an opportunity to go on mission, so he decided to go to the States to celebrate his retirement. Arriving in New York, he got a stroke, how they say. Had to spend 10 days in the intensive care in the States. And intensive care in the States, this is something minimum of $10,000 a day. So after 10 days, $100,000. Then he had to spend 2-3 weeks at the hospital before thinking to come back. Another $100,000. Then he had to organize his trip back home because nothing, JSIS is not organizing your repatriation, and he had no insurance to be repatriated. So another nearly 100,000. So at the end, he arrived home with a bill of nearly $300,000. Of course, it is a country with high medical care costs. So he didn't receive 80% of reimbursement, probably even less than 50%. So he was left with more than half of the bill to be paid by himself. With an assistance insurance, this would have been very simple. Now, another case, which was told to me by a colleague of research, head of unit at the research agency in Brussels, he's very fond of alpinism. And he went 2 years ago to make a trip in the Himalaya with his son. And the son fell in a crevasse, broke his leg, he had to call an helicopter to take him out, to bring him to the hospital. He stood at the hospital several weeks, then had to have a special transport to come back to Brussels, and he paid nothing because he had Europe assistance. So you see the difference. It's very important to have an assistance insurance, even if you go for 1 day to London, or if you go to make a trip in Switzerland. You understand, Switzerland, 40%. So this kind of insurance exists, but there are many proposals. This is only an example by Affiliatis, but you see that to be covered for the whole family, for all opportunities, you have to spend something like 270. In fact, now I received the bill, it's 2080 this year. But is it by Europe Assistance, is it by touring or another? It's always the same level. But you should think of it. But if you go only for 1 day to London, taking the ticket by Eurostar on the website, you are asked, do you want to have the assistance insurance? It's £10. It's a lot for 1 day, but it's better to be covered. So, this is what I had to say. If you have questions, you have my email address. Don't hesitate. It's an external address because I am retired. And but before posing questions, have a look to the working papers which were distributed here, French or English, because very often you will find the answer in this working paper.
Just to let you know that if you do not have any other copies left on the tables, you can just email to us and we will send that copy to you. Okay, so we'll start now with the questions. If you have any questions, we'll start from that side, going this way. So at least I will go from one side to the other, and we'll come back. So from this side, if you have any specific questions, if you do not find any answers today, you can still email to Serge your specific questions. He will be gladly available to answer to these questions to you. If not, we will start there.
A quick question. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Mr. President.
Go.
Okay, a quick question. You just mentioned about Hospice Safe, the possibility of doing now before retirement or with the retired association. And the condition seems a bit different. When you subscribe this before retire, you apply the same conditions after when you are retired, and not the ones that you can get if you go directly for the retirement association.
Yes, HospiceF is valid during your whole life. Once you have it, you keep it if you want up to the end of life. The only thing you have to say to the insurance company when you retire is any change of your address. That's all. Because retired staff is treated in the same way of active staff. And of course you can take the insurance for yourself and the whole of your family, even if your family is not insured by JSIS.
Bonjour, Serge, bonjour. Ça marche pas?
Push the button. Ah, tu dois couper ici.
Oui.
Ouais.
Voilà. Ça marche?
Il faut appuyer même. Voilà.
Ah voilà. J'ai su il y a quelques années que les assurances complémentaires prenaient automatiquement la demande de l'affilié, mais devaient aussi prendre, ils disaient de prendre toute la famille d'office. Il y avait parfois des exigences. Je parle d'il y a quelques années. Hein. Est-ce que c'est toujours le cas ou pas? Et entre autres, une autre question, en cas d'assistance, j'attire l'attention peut-être des personnes que lorsque vous payez votre ticket d'avion ou quoi avec une carte de crédit, j'ai appris récemment que si vous payez avec la carte Gold, si vous en avez une, ça comprend aussi une assurance voyage, ce qui vous évite de devoir en payer une autre à part. Mais on a eu des cas de plusieurs collègues qui ont eu, j'ai eu un collègue qui a eu un accident à la main, il ne savait plus prendre le volant, il était en nombril, il a dû remonter tout, il a dû demander un chauffeur, heureusement qu'il était assuré parce que c'est vrai que les collègues ne savent pas que le transport en général, le RCM n'intervient pas du tout. Donc là, l'histoire des personnes à charge, je ne sais pas si c'est toujours d'actualité.
Oui, le problème des personnes à charge, une assurance comme celle de Santalia propose vraiment de considérer toute la famille. Ça, ils le font, mais je ne sais pas si c'est vraiment obligatoire. En tout cas, pour HospiceF, ce n'est pas le cas. Pour grand risque accident, ce n'est pas le cas. Pour Eurosanté, ce n'est pas le cas. DKV, ce n'est pas le cas. Mais Santalia parle de cette condition, de cette proposition dans les conditions générales.
Attends, voilà. Et croyez-vous que lorsque, donc, l'exemple concret c'est le mien, je suis assurée avec une assurance. Par chance, mon fils maintenant travaille dans une des agences européennes. Est-ce qu'ils vont regarder son dossier médical qu'il avait avec moi lorsqu'il était à ma charge? Vous croyez qu'il y a... Ou ils le prennent comme un tout nouveau affilié?
Je sais que Affiliatis, du moins Signa, ex-Van Breda, n'a pas accès au dossier du PMO. Et donc, il n'y aura aucune corrélation. Mais maintenant, pour les assurances assistance, effectivement, si vous avez une carte de crédit, très souvent, vous verrez que cette carte de crédit vous couvre en tant qu'assistance en cas d'accident, surtout en cas d'annulation. Hein. On insiste sur l'annulation, la perte des bagages, maximum 250 €. En cas de problème de santé, maximum 5 000 €. Attention, hein, parce que moi j'ai été regarder toutes les limites de mes cartes de crédit et j'ai dit j'oublie. Parce qu'il n'y en a aucune qui soit satisfaisante. Sauf si vous avez la Visa Gold, là je pense qu'il y a une limite très élevée. Mais il faut faire attention, parce que même l'assurance dont je parlais ici a une limite d'1 million d'euros par an. Bon, 1 million d'euros, c'est énorme. Mais si vous avez l'assurance Touring, là la limite est de 0, pas de limite. Donc il faut faire attention aux limites des cartes. Oh, sorry, I realized I was speaking French. So all credit cards are proposing you this kind of assistance insurance. But be careful. Make sure you have a look to all the limits which are proposed. I know that one of the cards that I have by ING is limiting the health assistance to 5,000 €, which is absolutely not sufficient.
Just a brief question. The annual premium, is that the entrance premium depending on the age, or is it increasing with age?
It is increasing with age.
Okay.
So when you change category, suddenly the premium increases.
I'll go back to you.
I'd like to clarify the coverage for children and spouse. So if I take hospice aid, for example, my children now are covered by supplementary in JSIS because they're in Belgium as well, and my husband also because of his work situation. So if I take it, I need to pay 4 times, I guess, the annual premium, right? It's per person, the amounts here. And are they covered?
Yes, depending on the age.
Okay. And then they're covered until they're on my charge, or are they covered for life as well when they become more than 18? What is?
Well, this is very much depending on the insurance. For Hospice Safe, we were able to negotiate that once you have it, you can keep it. And if you look to the general conditions, they say for people having not JSIS or not JSIS anymore. So it means that in all cases, you can keep it. And you can ask your child to be covered by JSIS, even if by the Hospice Safe, even if it's not covered by JSIS. But the coverage, the supplementary coverage, will be computed in a theoretical manner, saying if he would have, I would say, been insured by JSIS, he would have received so much. So we have to give so much to supplement the.
Just first
The difference only.
Is the difference.
at the back.
Yeah, thank you. If you have already an insurance policy for hospitalization, and I see that Hospice Safe is a better covering, can I change then without medical questionnaire?
It's a very good question, because there are some insurances which are, in fact, like accepting. They say that you have a certain ancienity, and they will take care of the ancienity. But this is really a question to be posed to the insurance company, because they will decide upon, a dossier. They have to know which company, since how long you are insured, and so on. So if you want to have questions to be answered by the company itself, is it for Hospice Safe or for major risks, the other one, you can ask for an appointment. The people of Cigna are coming every third Thursday here in Brussels, Avenue de Nervien, in our offices, 105 Avenue de Nervien.
We'll continue just for a second and then I'll come back. Is there any questions on the other side? No? There, the lady.
Hello. Thank you very much for your presentation. I have a question about the deductibles, because with Hospice Safe Plus you have a deductible. Is it the case with the other insurances that you mentioned? These are more like the supplementary, like what you call Rolls-Royce insurances, where you have these 50 euros or whatever deductible that you don't get back actually.
Yes. This is what I call the ceilings which were introduced, and you have it nearly everywhere. Hospice Safe is not putting any deductible or ceiling on the hospitalization costs. But if you take the Rolls-Royce, then you have it on your visits, on the medicines, on the dental care, of course, optics and so on. They are rather high, and for what concerns medical visits, medicines and so on, it is corresponding to a certain statistics, because this was introduced by ourselves 2 or 3 years ago, after having seen the statistics. And so more or less 95% of the people would be under these deductibles or these ceilings.
Hello, thanks for the presentation. I have a question for you. If I remember well, you say that for one insurance, I don't know which one anymore, sorry, that for the first 12 months would be not a medical questionnaire. What happened after these 12 months?
Well, this is in the case you take an insurance like HospiceSafe just after recruitment. Because the recruitment, in fact, happens after a medical visit. And the company is saying, I take this recruitment visit valid during 1 year. But afterwards, you have nothing to do more. You are, I would say, affiliate. Afterwards, I will have to say more about that, but let us go on with the questions.
Just a question on the family coverage. If I would take an insurance up now, can I include a son of mine who's living in the United States and basically with no insurance?
It's a headache when you bring United States in the picture because you don't know what to do. Now, the only solution, if you are really with someone in the States to be covered, you have to call Cigna. And forget about HospiceSafe, just say to Cigna, I want to have an insurance for my son or for someone of the family being in the United States. Because Cigna is an American company. Yes.
Just to follow up, he's probably coming back to Europe in the forthcoming years. So in that case,
you take the insurance for a short time and then you abandon and you ask for example, HospiceSafe. You know, you decide by yourself, but there are possibilities.
okay.
This side, I'll come back to you. But this side, is there any questions from that side? No? Okay, we'll go back there and that's it.
Just to follow up on the question for the non-medical questionnaire for the first year. I thought I saw from Affiliatis recently, a few months ago, a mail to say, as if a special offer, no medical questionnaire for like everybody. Did I saw wrongly, or is it an offer that may come again?
This is what I call a promotion.
Okay.
In fact, I am taking care of the management of the insurance for Affiliatis. And when we have an event, for example, every year, there is the welcome day for the newcomers to the Commission. This is happening at the Berlaymont around the 15th of March. And there we say to Cigna, could we have a promotion? No medical questionnaire during 2 weeks or 3 weeks. And so all people having severe illnesses are taking insurance. So they accept to take a risk. It's a real promotion because they are taking risks.
But it'll come again.
There is something new. If there are no more questions, I should like to explain you something which is happening now.
First of all, we would like to thank you first for the explanation, and then we'll continue on the other questions. Then I think there was another question before with the.
Yes, actually it's again a follow-up for the medical questionnaire. Is this also valid for people who are hired not by the Commission but by other institutions? Because I think that I did have a questionnaire and I subscribed shortly after joining, basically 2 months after joining an agency. But I think I remember I had a questionnaire. So it's just, I don't have a serious illness and so on, but it's just a matter of curiosity, maybe.
Well, my understanding is perhaps you gave a questionnaire which was not necessary. But you know, when the company doesn't know you were recruited less than a year ago, perhaps they do not realize and send a questionnaire by itself. So during a promotion, if you ask for an insurance, you get also the questionnaire. And we have to tell to people, don't fill the questionnaire, because the company is making it in an automatic manner. But what I think I have to explain is that I told you this insurance, HospiceSafe, HospiceSafe Plus, called Van Breda in the past, now it is called Cigna. This insurance is valid since 55 years. And the administration, mainly Mrs. Suka herself, is insisting that, in fact, we make more publicity about it because, as I explained you in the beginning of the presentation, it's not that JSIS will become more rich than it is. So you will always have something like 20% to pay by yourself. And in some cases, this can be very heavy. And so the administration decided we have to say something more about insurances. We have to induce people to think of a supplementary insurance. But once the administration is considering this, the administration is saying, but we should work along the rules of the Commission and not keep the same service during 55 years. So we were obliged, as affiliates, to make a call for tenders. So we made a call for tenders in February, and there were 4 companies interested to answer to this call for tenders. The call for tenders was very simple. Please give us an offer for HospiSafe. It is HospiSafe, it remains HospiSafe, we do not change the conditions, so HospiSafe will remain HospiSafe. But the insurance company could change. So there was a call for tender, and 4 companies were interested to answer. Cigna Alliance Benelux, it means what we have now. Then another department of Alliance, which is Alliance Partners, for healthcare, which is called Alliance Care. Then AXA France, then Foyer Luxembourg. But during the whole elaboration of their proposal, they were asking questions. Every day I was receiving questions. AXA decided the day before the closure to stop, didn't give any offer because they didn't have enough statistics. Foyer stopped in the same way but a little bit before. So we were given 2 offers, the one of Cigna Alliance Benelux and the one of Alliance Partner called Alliance Care. And the offer of Alliance Care is better. So the decision was we have to move from Cigna to Alliance Care. And this will happen at the end of the framework contract, which is presently running, at the end of 2019. So on the 1st of January 2020, Alliance Care will take over HospiSafe. What is changing for you is that the address of the insurance company is not the same anymore. They are living here in Brussels. At the contrary, Cigna was living or is living in Antwerp. We also introduced other things, trying to improve this insurance. And we said, would it be possible to have also HospiSafe without accident for those taking a specific accident insurance? So you save 20, 30 euros per year. Nearly nothing, but nevertheless. But there was something else in the request. Would you accept to suppress the medical questionnaire? And the answer of Alliance Care was yes. And the answer of Cigna Alliance Benelux was no. And therefore you understand why Alliance Care got a much better score. And on the top of that, they proposed much lower annual premium. So there was no question, no discussion. We received the people of Cigna in our offices and they understood that they had no chance to make any dispute or whatever because Alliance Care made an offer which was 2 times better financially and suppressing the medical questionnaire. Now, you have to think that suppressing a medical questionnaire, you have always some articles in the general conditions which say, and this is already existing in the HospiSafe and HospiSafe Plus policy, that if something could have been understood at the signature of the contract and is asking for a reimbursement 1 year later, then there is discussion. For example, you should not ask for the reimbursement of a prosthesis 6 months after having signed the contract. You have to wait a certain period. So the questionnaire will be suppressed, but there is still this kind of waiting period which will remain valid. But because of this cancellation of the medical questionnaire, which was also a specific request of the PMO, because the idea is that if one has to move more and more in the direction of supplementary insurances, one has also to suppress the medical questionnaire, because you cannot propose to everybody to have a supplementary insurance if there is a medical questionnaire. So PMO was really asking, put it as one of the requests. We will see, and we now have it. Yes?
Thank you for the presentation, for the very interesting document as well. If there has been a call for tender and a new contract will take place, all the affiliates will be transferred to the new company.
Yes.
So what guarantee do we have that, you know, and 4 years further down the line, that basically the insurance will be continued? It might be that no company expresses interest and the insurance stops.
Well, the contract is saying that we are negotiating with now Allianz Care a contract for 10 years. After 10 years, there could be a change. There could be a new call for tender. But what we always propose is a HospiSafe. In fact, all the people assured by HospiSafe will receive one day a letter saying, well, now the insurance company is not the same anymore. The addresses are changed. But the insurance is the same. The general conditions are the same. The policy is not changed. After 10 years, it could be that we have to make a new call for tender. I am personally afraid, yes. It's not easy, you know.
No.
You were talking about HospiSafe, but I presume this also includes HospiSafe Plus? Or?
Yes.
Just...
Any other questions?
I'm going to retire early in 2020. Could I wait for applying for HospiSafe until then? Because of the medical questionnaire.
Yes, there is another thing which was suppressed when asking for the tender, that Allianz Care taking over HospiSafe is suppressing the 6 months before retirement.
Okay.
So you can subscribe up to the day of the retirement.
Any other question? If not, we will close here the session. Thanking you everyone to be here. And if you have any other question specifically based on a very specific criteria, you have the address of Serge. We will be very pleased to reply to you.
Just a practical question, because every third Thursday of the month the Signa is here to ask questions. Do we take an appointment via you?
You have to take an appointment with Signa.
Okay.
Going on the Signa site, you have all the references in the document, and the site is heurprivilege.com.
Thank you so much.
Thank you again.
Now, if you want to discuss something, it's always possible to have an appointment with us. We have an office at the council and an office at the commission, Avenue de Nerviens. So you can always ask. But we try to do it by email first.